You're recording? Ask me a question again.
Do you think that the performance marketing show, it's very like just direct? It doesn't have like a marketing zing to it, you know? It's not like a unique mechanism.
I'll be honest. We figured out the name of this show like on episode 1. And speaking of which, everybody, welcome to episode 3 of the Apex Marketing Show.
That's not what it's called.
See, we still don't know the name.
The Apex Agency Growth Show.
So, to your question, names matter way less than the content.
It's all about the content.
You know, I don't think this was actually the show notes for what we were going to talk about this time, but like, how about like the whole idea of like, is perfection really all it's cracked up to be in the marketing world? I mean, seriously.
No, and you know what the funny thing is? We keep coming back to the theme of like just getting shit done.
Right.
And you know what's funny today, and right now, just for some context, it is 2:15 in Las Vegas. We have just finished a mastermind.
AM.
2:15 a.m.
Just finished it, right?
Just finished a mastermind and took the craps tables for a little bit of a ride. And I want to give you a little bit of backstory to the last 7 hours of our day to talk about it, because we're shooting this late because the car that we were driving broke down.
A car you were driving broke down?
Yeah, Dom's car went outside. So speaking of which, so before we shot this show today, we shot an epic episode of A Shot of Wisdom, which we'll put in the show notes.
Guys, where's Doug?
Yeah. So part of that show, we had to go pick up a bottle for the show, and we happened to go to one of the most dangerous parts of it. And
that would be my fault. I picked where we were going.
So regardless, we picked up a lovely bottle of Basil Hayden, which, even funnier, we wouldn't have had to pick up if Dom didn't leave the bottle we bought yesterday at the craps table the day before. So,
It's true.
strike 2.
And for the record, the Basil Hayden's at a quarter tank, but nobody's counting.
It was Whistle Pig before.
So we get back into the car.
I think we're missing out so many, like, probably not relevant stories. But, like, just the roller coaster of this day, really quick, is we started out and we shot our first 2 episodes of this podcast this morning and thought we were, like, on fire today with getting stuff done.
Yeah.
Then we go to the event, we're there all day, it's cool, we're exhausted, we come out of that, and then this happens. So, like, it's just speaks to the roller coaster of this.
Yeah.
But the other part is that we were going to buy another different bottle of bourbon, and it turned out it was $271, which I was not paying attention to. And I gave them my card, and they're processing it. And thankfully, when something went wrong when I stuck it in the chip, he was like, "Oh, can you do that again?" And I looked over at the dollar figure, and it was $271 for what is normally like a $60 or $70 bottle of bourbon. So it was just one of these, like, man. Go ahead, carry on.
No. So after that happens, we get in the car, it doesn't start. I'm like, all right.
And this is not like some old jalopy. It's a new Mustang GT.
Yeah, it's a nice car.
It's
Great car.
It's a sweet ride.
And it just wouldn't start, so we call AAA, and they tell us it's going to be 2 hours until we get help. So Doug, in the kindness of his heart, we stayed around for probably half an hour. You talked to your brother for a little while. We're sitting there, and I realized this is not a parts store. Well, I go to the idea of like, well, I got to go buy a battery, but it's like, you know, a couple blocks away. Doug gets the idea we could just get a charger there, so he hops out of the car and just goes and buys the charger and brings it back. Sure enough, it was enough to kick over the car, and we got our way there. But this episode would have been shot about 6:30 this afternoon.
Yeah.
And here we are at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So the roller coaster of the agency life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but it's like the microcosm. And Doug, he's right now going like, you know, I told you we'd laugh about this later, and here we are. I was not laughing in that moment.
But I promised your wife that by the end of the night, you'd have a smile.
I would have a smile on my face,
Ivana,
and here.
mission accomplished.
Yes, exactly right. But it is like a microcosm of kind of that whole agency life, right? I mean, it's just that up and down, and that like, it never stops, right?
It hits
Never
the
stops.
fan regularly.
Right.
So here, like one of the big things, like our goal for the show, and I'm sorry everybody listening, it took a while to get for it, but that's just the kind of day it's been today.
Yeah, I mean, we're in Vegas. Come on.
But
Just
the
a break.
goal,
So you're saying
Goal
the
for
show
the
had a flat tire for a little while with my dead battery.
Yeah.
but hey, I hope it's entertaining. But the goal for the show is to kind of help people at different stages of agency life to understand, like, what can they do to help thrive in agency life? And inevitably, shit's going to hit the fan.
Yeah.
So between the two of you, well, the four of us, what have you guys done? And give us some stories about like when things have gone sideways and how you rebounded, both whether it's a client experience or just a general overall experience. What'd you guys bounce back from, and how'd you do it?
Oh, there's so many adversities. I think that's probably the theme of it. Is like it's not. I had some fucked up shit happen with client stuff. Absolutely, it happens all the time. Where like just some either vendors you work with do egregious errors on like website build-outs, or like somebody drops the ball and like the credit card's off on paid traffic for like a week. Like, I mean, that type of shit happens all the time. But I think part of what our clients are looking for is how do you deal with that adversity. Like, I always like to be the guy that sees around the corner for them, you know, like bad stuff is going to happen to us no matter what we do. And I think that the more that you embrace adversity and say, like, what does Ollie say? Like failing forward, you mentioned today, right? Like, so I think for me, it's just like being able to embrace adversity and realize it's just part of the game. And the reality is the faster that you can fail and the more that you can be okay being in the dirt, I think it's easier to deal with it. And I think no matter what you do, when it comes to adversity and bouncing back, you got to do the work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's not easy. You got to work your ass off, especially in the early going of being an agency owner. Like, until you get that momentum and you have a lot of recurring clients, like you got to do the work.
Yep.
I gotta. It's funny, if I may, just throw in. Normally, we'd ask the guests for their stories, but I'm gonna throw in another story because we're jacked up like that. But it's interesting. Part of my year and a half or so ago, I was, really just getting into I come from a corporate marketing background, much kind of a different game than working in this agency world. And so maybe it's a little bit longer than that. We were trying to launch a new product, and I remember doing the traffic to that product. I hired somebody who would help me with the Facebook ads because I was like, that's not my sphere of genius.
Yeah.
So hire somebody in who was purported to be an expert on that, and I'm like, we're not selling anything. And I went 2 weeks and I'm refining the ads and I'm trying to do everything I can on the front end. I'm change the creative, trying to whatever. And this is a couple years ago, so Facebook wasn't quite as smart as it is now. And I was just, or at least maybe I wasn't as smart, but definitely wasn't. And it's interesting, I found out later on that the person had just set up Kajabi wrong, so it wasn't taking my payments. And so people were just getting kicked out, and for how much time. But I'm embarrassed to admit, I just shut the whole thing down. I just stopped. I was like, I can't do this. I'll move on with my other stuff. And it's weird. Here we are, getting ready to relaunch that product finally. Because now I have much thicker skin. And I think, I had to go through that journey of just forget it, whatever. I'll just go back to whatever I'm doing. But that'll kill your agency. I mean, we've talked about this, Josh. You've gotten ups and downs. That stuff can kill your agency, or you got to move past it. Right? I mean,
Right. Yeah. I mean. Yeah, and it starts with your mindset, right? You can't give up on yourself. You have to believe you're going to succeed. You have to also be open to hard knocks and learning the lessons, even if it's in fine lining, right? And you really got to then put the work in, apply it, implement it. And I would say, for me, I kind of feel like I'm a little bit Steve Jobs, where I'm OCD control in a way, and what I mean by that is I've worked towards creating an organization that has accountability, discipline, culture, all around performance, and we have systems, we have processes, we have management in place to make that happen, right? And so this way we can make sure that we deliver consistently, and on top of that, I also feel like I control the variables to get the result which is expected, right? As an agency, it's about results, hands down, right? And I've figured that out in e-commerce, and I've put it into the business in different ways. So I just feel like that you have to be obsessive, but you also have to come from the right place. You can be like this Hitler obsessive, but you have to be obsessive, like where you care about every single detail, because you're a good person, and you want to make sure that you really like what you sell authentically. Even if you're the best salesman in the world, because I could sell ice to an Eskimo, but that you can do that all day. But if you're doing it all day, you don't necessarily sell the right thing to the right person. And you also maybe miscommunicate because your mentality is not where it needs to be, right? So it's all about authentically selling, using, salesmanship, but also delivering authentically as well.
There's two questions I want to have for you. One,
Sure.
how do you deal with like bad news and situations like that with your team? And two, how do you deal with those situations with clients? Because inevitably, you're going to have to turn around to a client and have to deliver bad news. Okay? And this is something every agency owner is going to have to deal with. How do you do that?
I think if it's a random act of like something fucking up that nobody saw and it just happened, then you just deal with it directly and you go straight to the point. And I just believe in being hyper transparent. But I also would say that if you've got vendors that you're working with and it's caused by them, where at all possible, you try to make sure that you don't throw somebody inadvertently under the bus, right? A lot of what you need to do is you need to get the facts, you need to get the figures, you need to understand what's actually happened and what's like the worst case scenario of this actually happening. But I think a lot of people, if they're successful, I'd like to believe that you've attracted a client that understands that adversity happens. But they're paying you to get the solution. They're paying you to figure the problem out. And I think it's like, again, it comes back again, like part of being a leader is like, I'll eat this shit for breakfast. Like, yeah, like I can handle this because if you surround yourself with the right people that are experts in areas where you're not, I think part of what happens is that if you have a problem come up in an area where you are not adept as an agency owner, where you don't really know how to fix it, that's where I think problems can compound, and then the speed in your ability to take problem happens, problem solved. If you don't know how to solve it, you could be like sitting way, way out here, and then your client really starts to get pissed off because you're like, dude, like this is like a month ago. Like what's happening here? Why haven't you got that fixed on my website? So I think part of it is just understanding your capabilities and where you're strong and where you're weak. And sometimes, at least for me, like surrounding myself with people that can fix stuff fairly quickly. So I embrace adversity, and when I'm delivering that news to my client, I generally like to know how I've already fixed it or how I'm going to fix it or what the action plan is to fix it. And then I kind of break the news to them if I'm able to. Otherwise, I'll just tell them straight away. But part of it is just like, shit's going to happen. They just want to know that you've got it taken care of.
Yeah.
Josh, thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that it comes down to having redundancies in place.
Yeah.
Having strong communication channels in place, and then having a culture of accountability, and then, having also a culture of ownership from the top down.
Yeah.
I think those 4 elements are like key. Redundancy meaning that, you, for example, copy or graphic, reviews, you have like a 2 or 3 point, system where 2 to 3 people check everything before it goes
very
to
much
the client, right?
Yeah.
That's just an example, but you have surveys going out automatically to clients monthly. We just implemented that recently. So, things like that. This way you're like, you have basically backup plans in place to review or get the feedback before it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then communication, it's just having good people, having communication channels that are strong between client to team members, account managers, to other team members, right? And there's automation involved with that, but there's also just having good people that know how to communicate and be team players, right? So, because it takes a team to succeed. Everybody has to play a role. Everybody has to be part of a team. You win together.
Yeah.
It's not about individual stuff necessarily. So anyway, yeah, I think that those factors really like play a big role, into making sure that you build a strong business that delivers on a consistent basis.
Yeah, and you mitigate having those situations or emergencies arise because you've already built that process through.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've learned in my mistakes. That's what I've learned, that you need to have those pieces in place.
So how much do you think because I think the two of you are both interesting, because as Doug and I talk a lot about, like, and you guys hear it too, was vertical niches and horizontal niches. And it's almost like we have that represented right here. I mean, Mike, you got to be one of the most like laser. Well, that's a good one. laser focused. So wow, could we isolate that? That might be the digital intro to the future. I think we just found our animation for our video. But no, but you are okay. I'll just go with it because it's still the expression laser focused. But why it's funny, why everybody's going like, why are you all laughing? If they don't already know you, you have an agency that specializes just on LASIK eye surgeons, right? Is that how
I'm a LASIK digital marketer that wears glasses. That's exactly it.
Because you just don't believe in the
No,
product.
I can't. I've got, my eyes suck. I can never have LASIK, but it's just ironic.
Yeah, that is ironic. So you have that, but you are insanely focused on, like, I hear niches. You're not just ophthalmologist. You're like specific. Like, I mean, it's just like you're really focused. And then come over to you, Josh, and you're more that horizontal, like you just do e-commerce, as like, versus just picking one specific. How much do you think that plays into helping your agency both like land better clients on higher ticket clients? How's it help that? But then how does it kind of help smooth out those ups and downs we've been talking about as well?
Oh my gosh, that's such a wonderful question. Okay, so what happens when you are narrow in your focus in a niche is that I'm able to take what works in market A to market B to market C to market D, and then as an agency owner, like, I'm able to see across a wide variety of different markets how Google Ads is performing, and and how's it performing in Arizona versus Texas versus New York versus et cetera, and that gives me almost an unfair advantage against other agency owners because I now know data points that they may not. You know what I mean? Like, I'm able to get really deep in my ability to optimize. So I can test this on that landing page over here. I can test that button over there, and use that information across a lot of different clients. And that enables you to to charge a higher premium for one, right? So clients will pay us $5,000 a month to kind of manage their stuff, and like, for me, like, that's having a client that pays you a higher amount per month is they're just after the result. And if you're somebody that's able to be incredibly focused in one area I help these people to get this result. I did it for these people, because I now have that data across a wide variety of spectrums. You know what I mean? And then also dealing with adversity, it's like, I'm able to like look on like Google Trends and realize like, hey guys, like right now in the second week of September, we saw in your market that there was a drop in, the consumers looking for laser eye surgery or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm able to get really, really deep and really optimize at a level that most other agencies can't, because I'm focused on serving one particular type of client. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so it just enables you to attract a lot of a higher ticket client, simply because you're like, yeah, you're the expert. You get it. Like, I don't take on other clients outside of this, because the thing is with implementation is actually quite easy to sell, but like, it's also one of the hardest things to do really, really well. And so I think for me, being able to be in one narrow niche and one narrow market allows me to not have to spend so much time figuring out how to convert a lead to a paying buyer. I'm able to figure it out and then replicate and optimize. So the depth that you can get into and to elongate the lifetime value of a client, because like, dude, like, we can plan out the next 6 to 12 months of optimizations, because I'm going to be trying it out in all these other different markets, and you might as well be along for the ride. You know what I mean? So when you're able to say that, then like, yeah, like, okay, I get it. Like, you're not just one restaurant or one car dealership of many. able to really be narrow in what you're doing. So
I want to hear your answer on this too. But the sales guy in me right now, though, is asking the question of like, how does that affect your confidence going into a sale of a new client?
Insanely. Like I'm because I have all the answers. I know. I can look at an ophthalmology website, and I do these audits that are like, I call it like a 10-minute website audit, which is really, from a surgeon, they don't have a very limited amount of time, right? And so by being narrow in my focus, I can handpick the clients that I want to work with, right? So I'll analyze the top 50 to 75 markets in the United States right now, who's actually advertising on Google. I'll create that into a list. I'm running a newsletter to them every single month because these are the people that are in the largest markets, so they've got the ad budget. These are the practices that are currently advertising, so I want to choose, you're the ones that I want to work with. So by being into, for me at least, being in one niche allows me to proactively and consciously target the businesses that I want to work with, add massive value to them by doing like website audits and like I was saying earlier, looking at a website within minutes. I know all the different things because all the ophthalmologists, they got pretty shitty websites. All they do is they just talk about themselves and not about the patient journey and not about how they can, you know what I mean? So for me, I'm able to see patterns by being in one niche, and I can walk into a sales conversation and just, I know what the hell I'm talking about. Right. I know way more because I'm so narrow in what I'm doing. So from a sales perspective, I think for me at least, it just allows me to come in very confident and also being intentional about who I want to work with versus trying to grab any client that kind of comes to you.
That's awesome. So so horizontal, same thing. Like how have you found all those same things from the e-commerce side?
Well, I mean, it's a broader niche versus, that's really narrow. But marketing is marketing. And as long as you know how to market and you know how to develop what it takes to, be successful with the marketing funnel, top to bottom strategy, you could really apply it towards any business. And I say that with experience because we didn't niche until like 4 years into my company, and it's only been like, 3+ years since it's just been exclusive, where we had like companies from different verticals before that, and we saw success with various companies in different verticals. So, I really feel like I can take any company and I can create the marketing strategy, implement it with processes and do it. However, with that said, it makes you more efficient and faster as a company when you say, you know what, I'm going to just stay here and I'm going to work on this specific niche. When it comes to developing the strategies, the tactics, the processes, the training, the people, all right there, they can help that specific company with those challenges, those problems that we've like learned very intimately, to your point, when you spend that much time with a specific niche.
It's interesting, like that whole, this focus is just different. I love the efficiency. You said earlier, the communication plan, for instance, and like some of the dealing with adversities. It's like if you just deal with this, then you probably see some common adversities come up, and you can do you find you can spot it sooner because you can just like oh shoot, the trend is wait, something's wrong because I've known this from.
Well, first question is it a mathematical problem? Reporting, analytics, right? Solves every problem.
Data's the boss.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And then if you can see that, then you can diagnose it like easy. Right. You can really just see it. But then if they don't have that, then they're not measuring properly, right? And then so you have to do the data yourself if you're diagnosing properly, and you then can, when you get that data, you can then see what's really happening.
Right.
And that's why we all do some type of diagnosis, right? Early on with companies that we feel like are a good fit based off the discovery calls that we do, right? And that allows us to really figure out exactly how we can jump in right away, we can get them results, and we can help them scale and grow and hit their goals, and we can give them the best possible experience based off of what experience they want.
Yeah.
There's a few themes like you guys touched on, and two very, very different approaches, like to business, where you're like hyper focused on a vertical niche, yours is more horizontal, like e-commerce. But what's interesting, and this is something, I mean, we've heard it talked about for the past 3 days, about you both apply like really specific principles. And there was a huge nugget that you gave away to the audience, and I want to repeat it for people. You took a very, very specific approach to doing an analysis for people and then supplied it via a newsletter. And that is something like, if they put in the work, no matter what their niche, horizontal or vertical, if they take the time to put in and then do some type of analysis, that's the greatest groundbreaker. But what's interesting, and you both said it, the next thing you both do is some form of like an audit, which then leads into strategy. So I want you both to walk through like your process, because this is something I went through in my business. This is the reason we quadrupled in a period of 6 months. Yeah. Because we changed our process. I want you to walk through yours, because I have a feeling for all four of it's going to be very, very similar.
Yeah, so what's standing out to my mind, and I'm always thinking about, if I know that I want to be incredibly intentional about who it is that I want to work with, how can I add massive value or be preeminent or be the, I don't ever think to myself that I've got competition. I just don't. Like, I don't ever like to look and see what somebody else is doing. So something that I've been doing that helps to just pre-position myself, one cool thing that we just recently did is I had my team go through the top 50 cities in the United States, and I had them go into Bright Local and use your local search checker, so it enables you to look as if you're in that actual market. And I had them put down the name of the practice, what their landing page URL was, what their specific headline in their Google Ads was, what their actual like all their ad copy, right? So we've got hundreds of these practices, right? That I now have all this data. Like, think about the value that data is. Like, again, staying in one niche to say, go into LinkedIn, go into Facebook, you do whatever it is that you can to say to a practice, listen, we have spent the time to analyze the top 50 markets in the United States right now. We've got all the data of what your competition is currently doing with their landing pages, not just your competition, but all these other different practices as well. So that, from a value perspective, really just kind of sets you apart. Like, if nobody's ever done that in our niche, at least I've never seen that. So we're coming out with that as a way to kind of pre-position ourselves. But when I'm doing an audit, what I like to do is I like to make it consumable for a doctor. I don't want to make it to be too long. They just don't have the fucking time. They really don't. So I like to keep it 10 minutes or less for them, right? And so we look at, some of the things that we look at are like, number one, do you have a lead magnet, right? Do they actually have above the fold the ability for somebody to convert on the website? I also look at the copy. I'm looking at, are they pre-positioning themselves saying that, is the patient the hero of the journey? You know what I mean? So are they always talking about how good they are, how many procedures they've done, all that kind of stuff? Then I look at, do they have a online scheduler, right? And then another thing I look at is, do they have the Facebook pixel? You know what I mean? So, and then I'm going into the copy. So my point being is that I look at these, I have a 5-point audit that I kind of run through. And again, if I'm intentional about choosing the practices that I want to work with, then what we've done is that we film that via Loom video for that practice. Then we reach out to them on LinkedIn, or we find their email address on their website and we send that directly to them. So I'm like just vigilant with focusing on who it is I want to generate a conversation for, and then figuring out ways that I can add massive value to that. And again, it goes back to being narrow in one niche. I can get really, really deep in the value that I'm able to provide and have that to be a way to generate a conversation.
Here's what's
that all make sense?
Yeah, it does. And this is like the biggest thing I want people to understand, and this is going to be a theme. I don't care what level you're at as an agency, whether you're just starting as a side hustle, whether you're trying to get 6 figures, 7 figures, you have to do the fucking work.
Oh, good. Yeah, of course you do. Yeah.
And you're an example of doing the work and what it looks like and how it's successful. And like, you've developed into a process, but there's no hack. There's no like messenger bot or quick like thing. Like, there's no webinar, like there's no magic funnel. It's like, do the work that provides the most amount of value and get it to the right audience. That's it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like like a same thing you're probably doing.
Totally. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, it's all about, like you said, doing the work, creating templates from your successes, right? Having the right people, creating the right culture, holding people accountable, empowering people, motivating people, basically, right? And part of that is too you being a leader, which is coach, trust, hold accountable, and be a leader in your own character, right? So this way, you set an example, things like that, because then it just passes down to the team and the right things happen.
I want to circle back to kind of where we started this whole episode to wrap it up. And the big thing we talked about is like, how do we overcome these like roadblocks and we stumbled, or dead batteries and flat tires? And like, I have a fundamental belief.
Get back under the bus.
I have a fundamental belief that it comes down to massive action. And both examples you guys gave were things that are action oriented. What are some of the tips, like if you just wrapped it up, like what are things real quick agency owners can do to kind of bounce back from either a setback or overcome some adversity?
Breathe, but I would also say surround yourself with people who've either already achieved the result that you want, or who you edify, respect, whatever it is that you want to call it. I think people would be shocked that if you kind of actually just reach out to the people that you really want to work with, or that you really respect, and you come at it from a very humble way. I'm a huge believer in that don't go it alone. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna go through shit. The key is like it's like an airplane that's flying. 95% of the time it's off course, right? So you're gonna get off course. Just embrace that fact. Embrace that failure is going to happen no matter what you do. And I think the key is to just to course correct yourself faster by surrounding yourself with people that can kind of sharpen your sword a little bit. So that's probably my biggest tip, is just surround yourself. Look at the company that you keep and say, are they enabling me to reach the best version of myself? And if they're not, then surround yourself with people in the agency world that are helping you to do that. And I think that's probably, for me, beyond everything else, trying to intellectually figure it out yourself, sometimes you just get fucking exhausted. Sometimes you're just really tired. And I think just being around people that can help you, probably my best tip.
Awesome.
So just to get super clear on the question is that, when things are tough, how do you keep going, right? How do you overcome? How do you grow from that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? All right. Well, I think that, for one, you have to be tough, period.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be tough on yourself. You have to be tough on your team. You have to be, to our point, tough on your marketing. What I mean by that is niching, right? And you just, if you there's times you need to hustle more than others. And when those times arise and you could feel it and you know it and you see it, you do it, which takes discipline, which is when you're an up and coming, well, I actually, it's not even just when you're an up and coming agency. I was gonna say agency owner, but it takes discipline no matter where you're at in your business journey. The thing is that as you get up there more and more, your responsibilities change, and how you manage, what you do, what you focus on, how you make decisions, how you filter, how you delegate, it all changes. And you have to adjust and adapt constantly, because to really scale your company, that's what happens, right? You go from, when you start, implementer, operator, manager, and then you're also managing your own stress because you're bootstrapped, right?
Yeah.
And you're providing, and you're selling, and you're just doing so much, right? And you make a lot of sacrifices when that happens. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I know that, I made a lot of sacrifices. I used to work till like midnight, 5 a.m. I, used to have my son, on some days, and he'd have to stay busy while I like work a little bit. And to your point, I'd feel bad. And so eventually I'd stop, but it would be really hard because I'm like, I want to put the work in, right? And eventually you adapt and you adjust and you identify that, you'll work a little more extra hard when you have the time.
Yep.
And then when you have those opportunities to spend time with your loved ones, you focus on that, right? And you just find a balance. So you just got to do all those different things to like really overcome challenges, because challenges are going to happen. There's, it's always going to happen. And, you have to maintain your stress levels. You have to endure. You have to have a positive mindset. You have to put the work in, every single day, every single moment. And you also have to make the right decisions that are going to lead you to where you want to go.
I noticed, I know where you want to close it because it's like, this is perfect, but let me just say this. I noticed you didn't say it gets easier just because your agency is successful. You said it just changes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure aspects of it to some degree get easier.
Well,
like it's,
but
I
think that when you get into business, you're like, it's going to take a lot of work, but I'm going to make a ton of money and it's going to get easy.
I don't think it gets easy.
No.
But I don't want easy.
Yeah.
I don't want easy.
No.
I mean, I want to.
Well, your vision, your scope, your drive, your motivation, it just evolves. It changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to be the best version of yourself to handle the next challenge.
Yeah,
and
that doesn't reflect necessarily how many hours you're going to put into your
there you go. Yep.
your work.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just means that you're going to have higher goals, more focused work, right? The right activities with the time you have.
That's the key with the time you have. I think it's not about grunting out the hours. I've had, no offense to myself, but I can't tell you how many fucking nights I've been up past like 1, 2, 3, like enough. Like that's not a healthy way to live. You've got to. Yeah, you got to give yourself that time.
But it's going to burn you out.
Yeah, you've got to have that balance. You got to have that sleep.
It's like, you're tired, Yeah. And it's like, and you get down on yourself, and you get yourself into a deep dark hole, and you got to dig your way out of it.
Yeah.
It happens. It happens. There's dark sides. We all have it, right?
You all have the dark side.
Luke. So yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, like clearly, both of you, thank you so much. This has been great because you're talking about, we've talked about challenges kind of in this one. Somehow we came to that all because I had a dead battery and we should have shot this 6, 7, 8 hours ago.
We got it done.
Whatever. We got it done. But thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for helping me through my adversity today. I appreciate that. All three of you, actually.
Man.
And this has been awesome, man. This is really good stuff. So look.
Could we give each other cheers?
Cheers. Yeah, that's awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining the Apex Agency Growth Show, or whatever Doug's calling it.
Well, it's honored. He was trying to ask me naming questions, but I will leave you with this one final thought.
There we go. Final thoughts from Doug.
One final thought.
Let's do it.
Okay. The one thing you talked about, whether it be sharpening your sword or trying to survive, and you talked about like keeping yourself in a community. That is why we built a community to be part of this show, so that you have access to people like these two guests. So please comment below or adjacent to, depending on what platform you get this. Join our community so that we can help you cross those chasms and figure out how to sharpen your sword or survive those long nights, because we know you're going to need help. We've all been there.
You can't figure it out on your own. No. That's just your ego talking.
No.
Yeah, that's just your ego talking, And honestly, you're not stronger, you're weaker. Like, you need help, you need support, you need people around you. So yeah, you're absolutely right. You need to be in a group.
Join ours.
Look at that. Now we know who the real marketer is, because he remembered the call to action. That's okay, people. You can call me out on that one. That's fine.
Everybody, awesome. We'll talk to you next week. And cheers, gentlemen. Thanks
cheers,
guys. Thanks again.